Welcome to Catch Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modies. This podcast is about living and playing in the Florida Keys. I cover my favorite sport, fishing, but also all the many things to see and do down here in the islands. Thank you so much for tuning in, and now it's time to kick back and relax with me in the Keys. This week's episode of Catch Outdoors is number 164. Hello all. Hope you've had a great week. Catch Outdoors is brought to you by Spotify. The title for this week's episode is Finally Went Fishing. Long pause. No, I did. I found a window on Friday from about noon until 2 p.m. when the wind let down to 15. So I drove down to the ramp, took a look around, decided to hook up the boat and make a run, but more about that in a little bit. So it was quite an event. That was 5 weeks. Weather's still iffy. Seems to be improving, though. We are about to get a cold front, believe it or not, and our first real one. So I'll have to see how that all works out. I know we'll have some wind, that's for sure. We have friends here from England, across the pond, as they say. So I'm going to do my best to get out there on the water for them this coming week. I'm looking at, seriously now, Tuesday. I'm recording this on Monday morning, and the weather report came in. The winds died last night. All of a sudden, there's just weirdness going on. That's what I call it. And so we're getting light and variable today and tomorrow morning until about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So, and then it'll go back to east again at about 10 to 15. That's acceptable. So, and I'm not the only one. I saw a post by George Poveromo who said, "Oh my gosh, the wind is open. I'm on my way to Key West to film a TV show portion." He has not been able to do anything either. It has blown. I did not fish one day in October. That's really just unheard of. Probably one of the best months that most people know that's one of the best months to fish in all of South and Southwest Florida down into the Keys, and we just couldn't get it done. If you had a monster Viking offshore, maybe you could do that, but it was just ridiculous. And the inshore winds were, or waves were 3 to 4, sometimes 5. In the open bays. I mean, that's just ludicrous. So happy that seems to be past. We'll see what happens. Only big news last week was the powerboat races down in Key West. Big event. Yes, the wind was a problem for them as well. They had to cancel Wednesday's races, but they made up for it on Friday with running extra scoring. I don't know if they really ran extra races or not. Never heard about that, but I think they beefed up the scoring for winners to help. They keep track of that as the year goes by to produce a champion. And then they did go off yesterday on Sunday. They were able to run Sunday, so still bumpy. I saw some wilds. I only saw one boat completely overturned, but the 2 guys inside were fine. No injuries. But all in all, I think it was pretty safe considering how bad it was. Maybe they were all being a little more careful than they would normally do because of the seas. So that's done. We'll be watching a whole parade of huge boats go out of here on trailers headed back up north. Last year it was kind of neat. If you were out on US 1, you'd see every kind of race boat that you could imagine. Let's see what's next on the list. Red Tide Report. Now remember, this came out on Saturday, okay? So by the time you hear it, it's Tuesday. Over the past week, the red tide organism Corinna was detected in 56 samples collected from Florida's Gulf Coast. Let's see. Let me get down to the nitty-gritty here. In Southwest Florida over the past week, it was observed in background to low concentrations in Pinellas County, very low to low concentrations in Manatee, background to low in Sarasota, Charlotte, and Lee counties, and background concentrations in one sample collected from Collier County. That's better news than last week. It's bad that it's still there. However, it seems to be dissipating somewhat. In Northwest Florida over the past week, Corinna brevis was observed in background to very low concentrations in Franklin County. And along Florida's east coast over the past week, K. brevis was not observed. Fish kills, no. Wait, did they have a report? They said it's possible along Pinellas County, but they weren't really I don't know if they were able to follow up on it. It has been so windy and so choppy. I'm sure even doing testing is probably an issue at this point. So I would call that a little better report than what was going on before. Christmas Eve is 6 weeks from today's podcast date. So that'd be Tuesday when you're listening. Time to panic. No, I'm not putting anything up. No, not until after Thanksgiving. Go over to the storage unit, get the tree and all the goodies out and put them up, but not until after that. So happy Veterans Day to all the vets out there. I did my time in the Coast Guard, 6 years, 4 and 2 as I call it. And it was okay. I'm glad I did. Glad I played my part. And thank you for all that have sent little messages this morning. I appreciate that. I also want to say something I thought about when I was reading about, Veterans Day. And Veterans Day is more of a celebration type thing. This is not the day it's not Memorial Day. And somebody that really, the folks that really don't get appreciated for Veterans Day are the veterans' families. And it just occurred to me because, I'm married to a gal who traveled all over the country and lived in a lot of different places over the years because her father was an Air Force pilot. And so I don't think the veterans' families get a lot of credit for the sacrifice that they also make in making sure that their family member, their loved one, is successful at what they do. I know I moved 4 times when I was in the Coast Guard, and I was only in the 6 years. So it's quite a bit for the family to have to pack up and head out at the end of every couple of years for a lot of people, and sometimes sooner, depending on what's going on in the world. So I just want to say hats off to the veterans' families for what they do to support their veteran. Thanksgiving's right around the corner, just a couple of weeks away. We've been invited to a local gathering that we've decided to join. This should be fun. Very much looking forward to an island Thanksgiving. What's happening is Billy Davidson's garden party happens to start on Thanksgiving, Thursday on Thanksgiving. And we're going to have a potluck. We're all going to show up and we're going to do music and we're going to do Thanksgiving. And I am really looking forward to that. It's nice to be part of an island community, and it's nice that Janelle and I have been ushered in, and it's really fun. So I'm looking very much forward to that. And yeah, I bet you thought I forgot. I didn't. There was an election. It's finally over. Whew, the ads are gone. And that's a major plus here in Florida because we were one of those, they were full of misinformation. It was just a mess. And the more you looked and the more you researched, the grumpier I got. And I just thought to myself, I just can't wait until this is over. Also, everyone please relax. This happens every 4 years, and each time one side or the other has to be the loser. Sorry. And as the British like to say, keep calm and carry on. I need a t-shirt that says that this week. And an update. Several podcasts ago, I mentioned that I was on a mission to grow mangrove plants. I don't know if y'all remember. I went out and gathered up the propagules, and actually Janelle and I did, which is a cigar-like those are the pods that basically drop from red mangrove trees. And so I started potting them, first just putting them in water to get a root thing started, and then eventually putting them into a soil mixture, which became much more complicated than I thought it was going to be. The potting soil that you use is actually sand and a potting mix, and you need the sand to hold them down. Potting soil will just float when it gets full of water, especially during the rainy stuff we had. Yeah, it's a learning curve. So I had to experiment to come up with the right formula. Well, guess what? It worked. I've got 8 plants now with tops on them. The leaves popped out recently, and I don't know, I'm like a proud papa. It worked. Yeah, I did it. And I will do more. And as these things grow and I get a chance, I will go out and put them in spots where I think they should be, out there in the water on the edge somewhere, and hopefully come back over a year or two and watch my little plant grow. I think that would be really, really cool. So I'll post a picture of my little starter plants on the Catch You Outdoor page. I usually do that on Wednesday. The podcast released on Tuesday, and on Wednesday I usually go to Catch You Outdoors Facebook page, and I post some photos, and I think I'll throw one on there for you. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. My latest article is in the November issue of Coastal Angler magazine. Speaking of Thanksgiving, the Keys edition. It's about celebrating Thanksgiving with seafood. You can pick up a copy all over the Keys and online at coastalanglermag.com. Just click on the Keys edition. What I did was I wrote about a day-long event, starting with your munchies in the morning and snacks and midday, and then, of course, the dinner itself, and then after dinner desserts. And basically, everything is around seafood. I wrote an article like this years ago. I don't even remember what magazine it was in. And it got a lot of good response because, I mean, we live in Florida where seafood is predominant over anything. I mean, we get great beef too. Of course, Florida's known for its beef, but Turkey Day is Turkey Day, and don't get me wrong, I love turkey, but every now and then I like to just spin a whole different way. And having a seafood Thanksgiving is a really fun time, planning and plotting what you're going to do. So I wrote an article about it, so check it out if you get a chance. Again, that's in Coastal Angler Magazine, the Keys edition, in the November edition. Songwriting update. 2 of my songs are in the final stages of production. These took a bit longer for several reasons, actually. Mostly, Billy and I have become a lot more picky about the sound that we're throwing together. And we're throwing ideas together, too, as we write. And it's become a real great partnership, to be honest with you. I'm thoroughly enjoying myself. We'll do this and we'll go, we could probably make a little change there. Next thing you know, I'm back in the studio for an hour and we're just redoing a piece of it, just a part. And also deciding what segment should be played or not played. And I'm really, really tickled with both of these songs. These are, it's just throwing things until they stick, I guess is what I should say. And I'll be honest with you, I was listening to a lot of music over the last month too, because I really wasn't out on a boat. I mean, my spare time around the house was playing guitar and listening to tunes that other people play and listening to the backgrounds of songs and the ideas of songs and the background vocals and going, that's cool. I like that. Can I do something like that? And that's where all this started. And so it's finally coming to fruition. We have the parts back from the bass player and drums. Thank you so much, Jake and Robbie. You guys do a great job. And we even recorded 2 versions of one of the songs called Adios, Mr. Hemingway, and that's the one everybody seems to be the most interested in. I know our drummer came back and said, it feels good. That was an amazing song, and I'm just really happy about that. So looking forward to the finished product. I'm looking forward to you all listening to it. It's a-coming. I promise you it's a-coming. As I like to say, coming soon. Here's something for you. I invited our friends from England to meet up with us at the Lorelei on Sunday, Donna and Paul. They're here for a month. Actually, they've been in Florida for a month. They're here for the last 5 days of their trip before they head back to England. So we invited them out for sunset food and music at the Lorelei, and got treated to hearing my own song sung by the band. Pretty cool. They did Bayou Bay. That's the music you hear on the podcast now at the beginning and ending. That's the intro music. You don't hear the song, obviously, but they did Bayou Bay, and it's kind of interesting how that location has come full circle for me and Janelle. We spent a lot of time there in the 90s with friends and other Keys people and Fisher people, and we just had a ball at that place always. And that was usually after fishing. We'd all wind up over there, and then we were listening to a band at the time called Case and Davidson. And yes, that's the same Billy Davidson that's producing my music. Unfortunately, Paul Case passed away. Sad, but true. It felt good to hear Webb and Davidson sing my song last night. I have to tell you, sitting there at dinner with my drink and my food and hearing my song played in a place that I have just been religiously going to every time I come to the Keys and watching sunsets was pretty damned amazing, I have to tell you. A few days ago, I mentioned listening to a lot of music. A few days ago, I put Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young's album on Deja Vu on the turntable. Y'all, okay, old people. Yeah, that's the Brown album, right? With all of them on the front. Yep. And that was after Young joined them, Neil Young joined. I was doing a little house cleaning, to be honest with you. This album came out in 1970, at a time when hippies and flower children, we were ruling, no doubt about it. There were war protests springing up everywhere. We had students murdered in Ohio by the National Guard. It was just ugly. War was popping everywhere. It was terrible. Woodstock had also just wrapped up. And I was a part of that time. I was 17 years old when all this was going on. What you would call impressionable. This recent election really unhinged a lot of folks, and I've been somewhat surprised by that. Things aren't that bad, people, but they could be. I mean, we really need to pay attention to what's going on overseas and where we get our news from. War is breaking out in several places, and the current administration just didn't seem to be very concerned about that, dumping money into it, but that was about it. I was. And the future economy and taxes and overbearing government, I feel like I'm right back where I was when I was 17, 18 years old, right before I was able to go and vote in my first election. And I, for one, was not shocked at the outcome. So listen to the album. Drag out Deja Vu if you've got it. If not, load it up. Go into the music. You can listen to anything nowadays and play it. I think it's one of the best protest albums of its era. And remember this. Teach your children. Now let's go fishing, where you can also do both. You can drown your sorrows and celebrate. These two things tend to happen on many, many fishing trips, especially the sorrow part when the line breaks and the big one gets away. I find fishing to be the world's greatest mind eraser, so it's a wonderful place to go when things ain't working out the way you want them to work out. You can go out fishing and really forget about your problems and wet a line, and it's just great. I mean, it really is. You don't really worry about the world when you're fishing. At least I don't. So I finally went fishing, and it was a quickie because I decided to go out during a window where the winds let down for just a few hours. I could not believe it. I ran to a new site that was given to me by a neighbor, actually. Thank you, Paul. Another Paul. That's 3 Pauls in my life. He lives here in Largo Sound, lives almost across the street from us. And he found this snapper spot, and he was telling me about it. And I said, okay, I'll go give it a shot. So the snapper weren't all that happy to eat. I got one. Again, I'm fishing artificials on this. This was not a bait. This was just go. And heck, I was just running the boat. Heck, the trolling motor would barely run. The batteries were so low. It was one of those instant things that I did. You go, man, I usually take more time. I know I had a tank full of gas because whenever boat's going to sit, I always fill it up. I don't let it sit half full. You don't want moisture in the tank, so you try to take care of that. So anyway, I ran to this site. Snapper didn't eat all that well, but man, the kudas were in there, and the kudas were big. That was the best part about it. These were not the tiny tots. Most were 2 feet, 24 inches. A few were 3. I had one whack it and just rip the whole thing right off. So I find that entertaining, actually. It was a great location. It also was positioned out of the wind, which is why Paul said something about it. He's like, this is the one place when this wind's screaming out of the east. If you can get to it, you'll be comfortable. And he was right. The only problem was visibility. There was lots of structure in the place. And I'm not going to say much more about that. I don't want to give it away. But it was really interesting in the fact that the water had started to clear. So in 4 feet, I could barely see bottom, and I could see a lot of fish moving around. So that was good. I'll go back. I'll go back and hit the place harder with some shrimp and some cut bait. I saw plenty of snapper, but they were crazy lure shy. I think they've seen a few people at this location. Must have seen those lures before, too. But anyway, the visibility was better than I expected. When I got finished there, I came back into Largo Sound, which is what we live on. And that's actually bordered by a wall of mangrove with the Atlantic Ocean. And I was really surprised at how good the visibility was considering this constant nonstop wind. So that was good. It was a positive thing. A lot of rock strewn about the bottom. I could see fish moving around back in the back. Got some really nice hits back there. Again, more kudas. And I also cooked the cutest little puffer fish. I haven't seen a puffer back there. I don't think I've ever caught one back there. So that was a big surprise, not to mention he hit an artificial. But I'm going to have to do the bait thing back there, I guess, too. I'm hoping to get back out Tuesday. So when you're listening to this, I hopefully will be fishing. As I write this on Monday, we're getting a minor low pressure coming at us from the east, and it should rain a little bit, and it will be breezy, but then fall off on Monday, which is today, and it has. It's calm outside, and it should stay that way all the way until 1 or 2 o'clock on Monday, or on Tuesday rather, and even maybe a little into Wednesday where we're located. I think that might be stretching it based on the weather and patterns that I looked at. I would really like to get my friends out there. I know they would enjoy it. Take them back in the Everglades, see if we can't find them a crocodile. But man, this October has been so weird. We have not had temperatures in the 60s yet. And that's always happened by the middle of October. By the middle of October, we typically have our first 60-degree temperatures. We have not had them yet. Yeah, go figure. And now we are well into November, and they said we might get 60s later this week. So I haven't seen much from the offshore guides. I'd love to give you some reports, but some went and some didn't do well. It was just, I've talked to one guy. He was like, yeah, he caught some snook, but he had to enjoy the bumpy ride to his location. And I thought, and he's got a 24-foot boat, so I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. But nothing like wave actions. And the stuff out front, we're talking 5 to 7 footers average. There were some 10s. No thanks. Even in a big boat, I don't know. That's just not enjoyable to me. Probably because I'm a whole lot older than I used to be. Inside was more of the same, except some of the guides roughed it to get to their hiding places to fish. I feel sorry for them. These guys have been out of work for over a month, and that hurts. And especially, you're already in the slower part of our season here, and you get a lot of guys that come down to fish, and gals that come down to fish because it's October, and they know the reputation of October, and nobody was able to do it, or almost nobody was able to do it. So, bummer. As I mentioned in my last podcast, I've invested in some deep diving lures for trolling offshore, and I am aching to give that a try. I'll be so glad when the waters over the patch trees finally lay down and clear up, and I can get out there and experiment with that and report to you as how it went. I'm thinking our boat must have been feeling lonely and neglected. When I got back, I gave her a good scrub and then charged up all the batteries. They'd gotten low from just sitting. I normally use the boat so much I never really even think about charging up batteries. Not anymore. I'll be sure to check that before blasting off after a long layover. Oh, wait. I'm not wishing on a long layover, so let's just hope this is the last time. While putting the cover back on the boat, it ripped. I'm just bleeding heart to you now, okay? Here's the Florida Sunshine's brutal. I bought that top when I got the boat 2 years ago, and so it's been on there ever since through rain, shine, 4 tropical storms. I think actually 5 if you count the first year we had the boat. Tropical storms, and that sucker has held up really, really well. I'm a big fan of that company. I'll tell you that right now. And so I ordered another one. It's due here on Tuesday tomorrow. But yeah, I was putting it back on after my little soiree on Friday, and I literally put my finger through it. I'm like, oh no. And of course, once you do that, those of you that have ever had a boat cover, you know what happens at that point. It just starts to tear all by itself. I even went and got some duct tape, and I thought, this is stupid. This is never going to work, and it didn't. So I was lucky that I was able to order it from the same place I ordered last time, and they were able to ship it out right away. So I should have a cover on the boat by Tuesday evening. Yeah, it's a boat, right? Just keep on spinning. That's the way it is. Also, I'm going to resurrect the filming stuff while boating. I realize that I have not taken any videos in ages. I've got a GoPro, I've got a DJI, I've got a DJI drone. I'm going to get out there and do some serious photographing once all this wind calms down, and just get my head back into the photography part of fishing, because I really enjoy doing that. I love doing the drone thing too. Speaking of charging batteries, I better get that stuff up to par. If my fishing plans pan out, I'll be able to add that report to next week's podcast, so please keep your fingers crossed. And now it's time for useless information.
And now, from the original book of useless information.
You are a reject! You are useless! You can get a job down here cleaning toilets!
Here's your host, Captain Rob Modes.
Lady swears up and down he's useless, but
He might be all right eventually, but completely useless.
With useless information.
Let's see here. This is kind of off the wall. Deer cannot eat hay. They do, however, like to eat marijuana. Bunch of high deer. In 1978, more deer were killed in Connecticut by automobile drivers than by Connecticut hunters. It might have happened in Kentucky, too, when I lived there. Reindeer, they like to eat bananas. Who knew? The only female animal that has antlers is the caribou. There are more caribou in Alaska than there are people. And there you go. Until next week. And here's some final words before I go. I'm hoping that the Atlantic hurricane season is coming to an end. Seriously. But this morning, Monday, I saw another yellow bubble from hell. It's been added to the National Hurricane Center's forecast map. However, it looks short-lived. I hope so. I know that all of Florida, the Gulf Coast, and the eastern seaboard have had enough. I'm actually praying for winter. And it looks like we'll be getting our first temperatures in the 60s this coming week. I certainly hope so. Everyone out there, have a great Veterans Day. I hope you had a great Veterans Day, and have a great week. I'll talk to you later. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed listening, please tell a friend, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. The Facebook page is Catch Ya Outdoors, the website, catchaoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts, news about my books, and my music. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.